Hey guys, Jen here. Again, I like to show my face so people know I'm a real person and I'm alive and all that. It's been really hot here though, so please don't judge. And the connection's a little wonky lately. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of lagging and like being redirected, so it's kind of weird. If you're new here, welcome. Uh, quick breakdown on what we do. Um, I'm not a posh actress. I don't have a studio. I'm just a woman in my bedroom. Because I realized around 2017-18, I had this awakening. I believe that God woke me up and shook me awake. And ever since, I have a regular relationship with the Lord. And I know there's tech out there. We talk about that too with targeted individuals. But that's not what this is. This is not God to skull technology. It is the Lord. If you look at YouTube, there are a lot of us talking now. And it's not, when I talk to the Lord, it's not like Manchurian candidate type stuff. So, anyways, I realized, like many of you, that reality was a lie. For me, it started right before the lockdowns, maybe a year before. But for everybody else, it started kind of with that. And people had time. They weren't rushing off to their jobs. They were at home more. They were able to research on their own. And everybody kind of started realizing and coming to terms with the fact that we've been lied to. So, what we do on this channel is we kind of break down the headlines and defragment them. And we also do it from a biblical lens, though everyone is welcome here on the channel. Um, because God woke me up, I share things that I feel like will help people to see Him or see that we have a creator with us. And so that's kind of what we do. Now, this is a Philip K. Dick, Philip K. Dick deep dive, sort of, because it's going to be a series. It'll be a few videos. Now, this one is going to be about the strange case of his bishop. We've talked about how scripts seem to be running in the background of our reality. So either A, the media is stealing scripts from like Netflix and things. For example, I'm in Ohio, like 30 minutes away from East Palestine. We haven't had trains run through Northeast Ohio in years. And I know this because they used to help me sleep because I was born in Pittsburgh. So I'm used to the noise. I haven't heard the trains since about 2012. So, truckers kind of bring us everything here. And when that happened, I didn't have Netflix, but a lot of people said that it was this movie called White Noise or something like that with the kid from Return of the Jedi. Anyways, it followed that script. So either whoever's running the media now, instead of giving us real news, is just using scripts, right? So in that frame of mind, that means everything is fake. And where is it coming from? I personally think AI has been running things for a long time. And I think since 2019, a lot of people are gone. Now, where they went, I don't know. We talk about that too here. We also talk about the map and the fact that it doesn't appear to be what we've been told. For example, I allegedly live in Northeast Ohio, but it has been humid as all get out this summer. It feels like, and it's not even July yet, and it feels like we're in Florida. There is a town right up the road called Mecca. We also have a Jerusalem not too far away. And then there is something else that is the exact same setup as over there in Israel. Now, I know allegedly when we come here and we migrate, we bring our culture with us, right? I don't think that's what this is. Because if you look, like I looked at my history and the French people that came over, they basically had mail order brides after the men came over and got work. We never hear a lot about that in social studies, though, right? We hear just about these Puritans and all this colonialism. So we're searching for truth here. Now, we've talked about either they're stealing scripts or some of our authors are modern day prophets. The Wuhan debacle was in a Dean Koontz book called Whiteout or something like that. And verbatim, the Whisper Room, verbatim, the targeted individual story or what have you. So we're going to look at Philip K. Dick. There's this Exegesis he wrote. Exegesis, he's a weird dude, but he's really interesting. And This is basically a compilation of years worth of correspondence, because back in the day, people didn't email each other. They actually took the time to handwrite notes. And so he wrote notes to various people and various friends throughout this period of time when he was having this awakening of sorts. Now, I will warn you, his awakening came with substance use. Mine did too, in a way. I definitely took the sinner's path to salvation, which I will talk about soon, I think, God willing. But anyways, it's that time period, and he is trying to sort through these experiences that he's having. But not only is he trying to sort through them, he's having this cathartic, therapeutic experience by writing about them. So is he a prophet? Or are these clues for us? So we're going to get into it real quick. Let me pull something up. First, we're going to look at his pastor. We're going to kind of break the ice with that. Hopefully this won't be more than like an hour long. We'll just read some stuff. He is super fascinating. It's like his diary, basically, and he talks about these mystical out-of-body experiences he has. But what I find fascinating is some of us who have had like this awakening over the last several years can relate to what he's saying. So let's check it out. First, we're going to take a look at his pastor, because this is wild. And I think, again, it kind of proves, and again, I'm only showing my face for a few minutes just so the aesthetic, right? I want people to come here and feel like they're talking to a friend, and that's how I feel like we should be. But anyways, let's share this. Yeah, I'll get my face out of the way. There we go. Now, this is strange. Philip K. Dick, through these mystical experiences, right, throughout this happening to him, he also has his house broken into. And they don't steal like his belongings. I'm sorry, I'm like really short today. They don't steal his belongings. They trash his filing cabinet. Back in the day, remember, everything's on paper, which is actually a really good way to do things. As long as you know you're keeping copies and they're close to you, if they're personal documents. Anyways, they break into his filing cabinet and they take writings about his bishop. What did he write about his bishop or to his bishop? Not only that, the way his bishop passed, he's over in Israel, like taking Christ's path, like walking, pilgrimage. He passes, and he's very controversial because he doesn't really, he doesn't behave in a holy way. You'll see in a minute. And the way he passes is very strange. If you pay attention to the words, again, we're trying to pick up breadcrumbs for reality. And I believe, how do I say this? At certain times, like prophets or people who have visions, they know that the authorities are not going to want them around. Bernadette, who was a child, the church basically took, the Catholic Church basically took her and raised her in like a convent, and then made her take a vow of silence at one point so that she could not speak to the third secret of Fatima. Visionaries, and look at the biggest one, Christ. It was a piece of God, and look what we did to him. Visionaries don't go well here because people attack the messenger and not the message. But especially the elites, the authority figures, right? Because they don't want you listening to anyone else but them. That's why they're breaking down the family unit, because they don't want you trusting anyone else. They don't want you to be able to rely on anyone but the system itself, which is just so dystopian. I can't even explain right now. Reality has been I stay away from the media lately. Like, I just don't want to hear anymore until I see things happening around me. I can testify to the fact, though, that people in real life have changed. Okay, so let's get into it, because this is weird. We've talked about the map and how things don't seem to be the way that we were told they are. So Philip K. Dick's, what I searched was Philip K. Dick's pastor, strange death. Now, here's the AI overview, which you can't even turn it off. Philip K. Dick's novel, The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, is based on life and strange death of his friend, the Episcopal Bishop James Pike. Pike was a controversial figure who held unorthodox views and faced numerous accusations of heresy. He died in the Israel desert in 1969 under mysterious circumstances. Dick's novel fictionalizes Pike's death. Pike's Life and Death, exploring themes of reality, religion, and the search for truth, which were central to Dick's own life and work. The book, like much of Dick's work, often delves into the blurred lines between reality and delusion, life and death, and the nature of religious experience. That's what I like about Buddhists. They're very upfront with life being an illusion, like a lot of this, not getting to them. But at the same time, there's a certain coldness to that, right? Like if none of it's real, then what do you think of other people when you get into this whole like I forget soloist like experience? And I feel like you can fall into a dangerous like narcissistic attitude there. So what I'm going to type in now, because I want you guys to see his story, is I'm gonna type in or copy and paste his name into the search engine, and we'll pull him up on Wikipedia, and you guys can check out the story of how he passed away. It's weird, like it's very strange. Okay, this is what he looks like. He's a strange little character. You know what's really weird too is there's a few politicians I've noticed, and even like Carter Conlon, the pastor from New York, they look like people like caricatures. He looks so much like the guy in one of the Christmas movies. I think it's The Mailman, the real sweet guy with the big red cheeks and the thing in between his teeth. Pastor, or I don't know his name. I don't know his title. Pastor Conlon. Anyway, he's a strange love figure. So let's check him out. Here we go. James Albert Pike. He was born February 14th, Valentine's Day, 1913. And then he passed somewhere between September 3rd and 7th, 1969. I can tell you from experience, when I got married, the day we got married, and the night I almost died, right before the 11th of September, that there's like an occultic day in there somewhere, depending on what year it is. That's called like the wedding of the beast or something. It's like Beast Day. Yeah, it's wild. So that's a date that they I don't want to say idolize, but revere, right? So James Albert Pike was an American Episcopal bishop, accused heretic, writer, and one of the first mainline religious figures to appear regularly on television, which again, there's something about the screen and these strange lives. I feel like they're leaving clues for us. I'm going to make this dark because I feel like that's easier on our eyes. Mine, especially since I'm doing the reading. Is anybody in here with me? Hey guys, thanks for being here. I appreciate you. Okay, so Pike's outspoken and to some of his fellow bishops heretical views on many theological and social issues made him one of the most controversial public figures of his time. I'll tell you right now, he was kind of what we would call, especially back then, he was a liberal. He believes in equal rights. We would maybe call him an activist, but low key, like not like MLK, right? But somewhere in there. Oh, here we go. He was an early proponent of the ordination of women and racial desegregation within mainline churches. The chain smoking Pike. I was just thinking of that today. The fact that I still do that. The chain smoking Pike was the fifth bishop of California, and a few years before, he began to explore spiritualism and psychic phenomena. In an effort to contact his deceased son, became a recovering alcoholic. So, right, that's a lot, right? Like, that's a mouthful. He's supposed to be a pillar of the community, a good example. And he chain smokes with probably the collar on, which, yeah, he's right there at dinner with it and his coffee. Um, People didn't look upon smoking back then the way that they do today. It wasn't such like a stigma type thing. But he believes in the ordination of women. And back then, like, it's still a no-no for the Holy See, like even with as radical as that's become, and I don't even want to go there right now. That's early for somebody to be a proponent of that and be outspoken about it. Racial desegregation too, 1969, like that's a year things popped off. You have riots going on, and he's in California, so he probably is some type of. I don't even know how to say it right. Oh no! Please don't be unstable. Don't do this to me. I don't want it to do that. I want it to work. Let's make sure. Let me double check real quick that it's still showing here. Oh gosh. Are you not on there? Heaven's sakes. I hope it's still live. Hello. Ba, ba, ba. All right. Well, I'm gonna keep going, I guess. Let's see. Do this. Oh no. Am I not live? Let's go fix it if I can. Uh-oh. Okay, we're still there. Anyways, sorry about that. So he was born in Oklahoma City on Valentine's Day. His father passed when he was 2. He was a Roman Catholic and he graduated from Hollywood High School. However, in the 2 years he attended Santa Clara, a private Jesuit school, he came to consider himself an agnostic. I bet people would have a lot to say about that. I don't know a lot about the Jesuits, but you hear whispers. Pike transferred to the University of California, LA, and then again to Southern LA, where he received his bachelor's, blah, blah, blah. He went to law school and he was admitted to the California bar. Wow. Oh, he went to Yale. Yikes. Okay. Pike married, and here's where we get weird. Pike married Jane, not weird, but bad for a bishop. And then we'll talk about his and what that. We're not going to get into a lot of. Oh, he was. His ordination as deacon by the Bishop of Washington, D.C. Wow. Da, 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 da. So he was known as a liberal Protestant. And then he was invited to ABC to host his own weekly television program, The Dean Pike Show, later renamed The Bishop Pike Show, which made celebrities of him and his wife. So they were like the first Tammy Faye. So you would consider him, I guess, also like a celebrity, like pastor, which, that's a little weird. Now it says it soon eclipsed Bishop Fulton Sheen's show, which is wild because I've never even heard of this guy. Hold please while I take a drink. I don't want it to shut. No. Go away. This is ridiculous how everything makes you want to do stuff. I don't know why, but every time I do a video on Philip K. Dick here, things happen. Like I don't know what the deal is. It's very strange. So there he is with MLK. So he is kind of like a celebrity bishop. Okay, so let's go back and we're going to look at his strange passing. Okay, so it gets weird. I'm going to see if I can pull something up. But his death in the Jordanian desert in 1969 was indeed considered strange, especially given his previous exploration of psychic phenomena and his son's suicide. So here's the thing. I'm pretty sure the woman he married is like his second wife too. I think something went on there, like a divorce. I'm not sure, but I think. And then the guy is depressed. His son ended himself, so he's not knowing what to do or who to turn to. And so he goes to a psychic. Now think back then in 1969, especially like Protestants and like evangelicals, they're more open to spiritualism. The Catholic Church might call it mysticism, and some would even call it heretical. So again, it's kind of perspective. We can't really say because we're not there, right? We're not witnessing all of this go down, but you can see it in our time, right? And that's what we're going to talk about too is time. Philip K. Dick thinks he wrote in this book, and I did a short video on the first installment of this series. He thinks we're still in 50 AD and that everything's an illusion. And I haven't seen it in his Exegesis yet because I've went forward and read some of it. Exegesis, I don't know. Anyways, I haven't read about it yet, but he did not look into the Bible in that area because we read already about how he had that vision of Daniel and that prophecy happening. But I haven't saw yet that he has looked back and saw that God actually, when he was freeing the Israelites, he stopped time so that, I think it was so they could get across the desert. Like, God stopped the sun and the moon and stars. He stopped everything so that they could go to do what they're doing. Some people say that's where the time zones come from today, was that lag in time. But again, we're not in charge of how we count time. We need to take charge of our own lives. We need to claim our sovereignty and stop allowing other people that we don't even know, that are probably just AI characters on the TV and probably always have been. Anyways, so his son ended himself, right? And he's like feeling desperate. So he goes to a psychic. Now, spiritually, when you do this, when you seek out things like that, they will come, but you don't always know what you're dealing with. And that's why God tells you to test the spirit. But in this way, he was trying to contact his deceased son. That's a no-no. You're not supposed to do that. And I worry sometimes that our computers, and our phones and our screens are just like mini oracles, like they're mini Ouija boards, right? Like it's kind of weird to think about because of how synchronistic my devices have been with me. It's almost like we're all on a dead internet, right? It gets a little strange. So we're going to continue on here. He's opened himself up now, right, to further grieving, and he's opened himself up to being deceived by strange spirits, energies, frequencies, lower level energy beings. And I feel like with the word spirit, we've all gotten very complacent. I feel like spirit is just something we can't see, but it does affect our physical being and our physical reality. And I believe things happen in the spirit first. And we've seen a lot of examples with like retro causality and effect coming before cause. And in fact, you saw it in France now. Watch. They just did that to all those girls, right? What's going to come next? If they're doing everything in reverse, and in France, they just, against their consent at a concert at a big crowd, a bunch of girls, only girls, were jabbed in the arms and in the back. Don't know what was in it. Don't know, why. I'm pretty sure I know why. I think it's the religion of peace. I think they are working in tandem with like Freemasonry. And again, like I said, we have a common enemy. So we should quit arguing like about doctrine and stuff and just stand firm in our sovereignty. And when someone wants us to go against our conscience or natural law, someone wants us to force us or manipulate us into a situation, we need to learn how to stand firm. And I hope lockdowns taught people, that. So he's opened himself up to all kinds of stuff, right? He's got issues. He's supposed to be a leader and like a shepherd of these people, almost like a counselor, right? And sometimes a marriage counselor. People come in, they have a problem, they want to talk to you. How are they going to talk to you if you've got all these problems, right? That's why in the Catholic Church you don't marry, is because the church is your home, and it's your baby, and it's your wife, it's all those things, it's your family, and it keeps the focus there instead of on personal problems, right? I hope that's understandable the way I said that. Now, after his son passed, Pike became increasingly involved with mediums and seances seeking to communicate with him. This, along with his controversial theological views, led to his departure from the Episcopal Church. He was ultimately found deceased in the desert while researching a book about Jesus. Now, what I want to know is when Dick's cabinet, his filing cabinet, was broken into, and he said papers were taken out about this bishop, did he already write a story for him? Because again, I'm not saying dude was a good guy or anything, but why did Hitler want to burn all those books? Are some people really prophets and they should be very careful about what they write? Or not even prophets, but like you manifest that way, you can affect reality. Back in the day when you wrote a book or a poem or a spell or a recipe or a Bible, you would have what was called, the paper was vellum. And what that was, it was animal skin, very refined animal skin. And you would use black ink. There's the black goo again, obsidian, right? And you would, no mistakes. You weren't allowed mistakes. You weren't allowed to do pencil first and then write over it. You just got good at script. And there's a reason for that. There has to be a reason why the whole process was very ritualistic in that way. Okay, so what we're going to do is bounce over to his Exegesis. Well, real quick, we'll see if we can find the summary, because what I want you guys to pay attention to is how he gets lost. Okay, so imagine this. He's controversial. He's already a controversial subject, right? He's messing around with mediums and all this stuff. And he's probably spending good money doing that, right? It might be very convenient for the church to be rid of that embarrassment, right? And mind you, he was with his wife, who I think was younger, and she was like a second wife or a newer wife, something like that. So hang on. They say he died on a substance in the desert. Hold on. I'm looking for something, but we're going to go over here. Because I got his Jesus pulled up, and you can actually do a search. There are tag words here, and I'm going to do Bishop Pike. And we're going to bounce around. We're not going to go in chronological order right now. And I'm going to share this text and make sure that it's sharing properly. Looks good, looks good. All right. So this is his Exegesis. Now, I'm going to go through it real quick with you. Over here, you can search terms. There's tags over here. This is his Exegesis, but it's also somebody else's notes with it, which I think are helpful because guy was a genius. And I know that not all of us here are geniuses, and not all of us here even know who he is. Not all of us here read books anymore. So I thought it would be helpful to have somebody who already was familiar with the material to kind of explain it to us a little bit. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to insult anybody or anything like that, but I also don't want to assume your knowledge base, like what you know or don't know. So I searched Bishop Pike. Now that's where it talks about Timothy Archer. There it is. The transmigration. Hold on one second. The true identity of Angel Archer and God's evolution. Let's see if it has death of. We'll search that. Bishop Pike. Now again, guy was a genius, and he has things written in here, observations about reality that are just way before his time, right? All right, so see, I'm wondering if he wrote this story and then those things actually happened to the bishop, or they used it as like an idea. To Marcher as a okay. So they're talking about that book there. Oh, where are you? I don't know if it's going to be in here. That's weird. Dear Jesus. There you go. And now how do I get to folder 1? Oh, please, guys. Oh, no, I don't want folder. How do I do it in chronological order? Okay. So here are his full notes. Now, he's telling you how, like, what a massive task this what it was. Again, you got to picture it. Philip K. Dick is having this spiritual awakening, and he's also an author. right? And so he has correspondence to his agent and to his friends that help him brainstorm ideas for books and ideas about reality. And you'll see letters to people here. And again, we'll look at some of it just because it is so enlightening. I'm trying to find Bishop Pike because this is where I heard about it. I was reading this and Bishop Pike's story came up. And that's when I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to. Now, this is newest to oldest. We're going to change this and do oldest to newest and start at the beginning in chronological order. And this is what he's got to say about it. He says, I'm not sure how this is going to go tackling the 900 plus page publication of Philip K. Dick's Exegesis. I'm planning to post notes after reading bite-sized chunks. So here's the basics. In the introduction, editors, and now what he's doing is this Exegesis, all these correspondence, all these notes from this time period of years, his friends compiled after his passing and made this book of all these notes about his life and these metaphysical experiences. He wrote everything down. This guy breaks it down for us because, again, it's a lot. Now, basically, he says in the introduction, Pamela Jackson and Jonathan Letham give us some backstory. Dick claims to have had the following experiences in February and March of 1974, and he calls these collectively as 2374 for February and March of that year. The first thing is, like one of the pivotal moments, is he trips out after seeing the Jesus fish necklace of a delivery girl who brought him a painkiller after a visit to the dentist for his wisdom teeth. He had been given sodium pentothal earlier in the day. I'm not a doctor, no part of this is medical advice. It's just for entertainment purposes. We've talked about sodium pentothal with the alien abductions, right? And how alien abductions probably aren't aliens. And I hate to say this because I know everybody wants to believe. And I'm not saying that there isn't something they're working with, but I'm saying with my experiences and the, marks afterwards and stuff, just like these girls in France are talking about, it goes deeper than that. And I don't know how to explain this. When you're in like a mesmerized state, and that's what that stuff does, it puts you in like this very easy going attitude, and you're very easily manipulated, right? It's almost like a trance. If you've ever had a twilight, that's what they call it when you go in for like a basic non-invasive surgery. They give you what's called a twilight. You're still awake, but you're kind of wonky. Again, I'm not a doctor, but this is what we're talking about here. The second thing is he hallucinated on 2 separate nights. And then the 13th thing is a plasmatic entity visited him and he heard messages through his radio. Oh my gosh, does that sound like targeted individuals? Now, again, it is my belief that number stations are not what they say they are. I told you what I think they might be. And I think all of this stuff is connected. Like the map, the reason they lie to us about how big things are and where they're at. It all goes together. So it says a plasmatic entity visited him and he heard messages through the radio. That sounds like targeted individuals. Prior to all this, in 1971, here's where it is. Someone broke into his house in San Rafael, California, and blew up his file cabinet. Whoever was responsible remained a mystery. Some people speculated later Dick had temporal lobe epilepsy, but at the time, Dick tried to make sense of all these events through copious notes, meaning he wrote everything down. Everything. Which he referred to as the Exegesis. After he died, Paul Williams, his friend and executor of his estate, attempted to organize the 8,000 plus mostly handwritten pages. The Exegesis took on a mythical status among, you see what it says there, until this version, which is the editor's best attempt to whittle everything down to something readable. And it was published in 2011. Now he's talking here about how it's going to be bigger than he thinks it is. It says Dick has adopted the possibility. Now, this is his notes on the Exegesis, okay? And again, this is where we're starting with this because it's just, and we're going to go to other places. Like when he gives us a lot of information and then we can check on it and like read the synopsis for the books and whatnot. And it's wild how many of his stories are today. They are what we are going through with this AI apocalypse right now. And he even calls it AI. And like I said, for Gen Xers, a lot of them who are still asleep are going to be very angry when they wake up and realize we've been monitored since day one, since Nixon was in office, I believe. And I believe that's what Watergate was. It was telling us passive consent, like, hey, if we're doing this to the president, you can bet. And again, it's why officers are chubby, because they sit around watching screens all day. Anyways, now he says here, Dick has adopted the possibility that he was inspired by something to write his stories. Now, you can get into the point here where, is he talking with the Lord? Is he talking with strange spirits? But again, it's very cult-like, so we have to be careful. He says he's a Christian, but back then, especially in that church, it was more liberal, I guess, especially in that time. Or it was, you had, just like today, these two polarizing sides, right? It says in section labeled folder 4, Dick muses about the logos and how, now logos is like the word, the voice of God, and how it connects to his novel Ubik. We get a glimpse at the Gnosticism, which to overly simplifies the idea of spiritual knowledge as a path to God, which underpins what he thinks has been happening to him. Gnosticism, I have to tell you right now, we are seeing, like on TikTok and with this trans stuff, that is a physical manifestation and a mockery of Gnosticism. Even Gnostics who don't, you have people here who don't understand how to read a book and detect the spiritual aspects behind it. And that's where a lot of people are being misled, right? Like they try to walk the walk and do the laws, but like, is your heart in it? Are you loving? Are you compassionate? Are you charitable? Or do you kick the homeless? Do you wish they would go away? Are you on the right side there? And do you know whose side you're on and who you want to be? And so Gnosticism, again, it's one of those religions that's highly misunderstood, I think. And there are some bits that I have pulled from there, and they seem like they're plausible as far as like archons go, because we know there's a hierarchy, and you could call that hierarchy a pantheon. And then you say, well, what about monotheism? Well, yeah, God's at the top, right? So again, I think we're all a little more alike than we know. So the Logos is the Word of God, as in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And is a separate entity from the Holy Spirit. Now, this is where he gets very mystical. The Logos exists outside of time, unlike the Holy Spirit, which exists in time, but moves in an opposite direction to the time we perceive, which is wild, because I've talked about this, since I just mentioned it, since the beginning of my testimony about how things have kind of been backwards for me, like almost all my life. It's very strange. It's not how they say it is for me anyways. It's been like effect then cause, like I don't know how to explain it, because you're taught the exact opposite. So it's really hard when you start trying to embrace or talk about some of these more mystical experiences. It can be very difficult, especially with how with how critical people are, with how we are with each other, right? We're all like that. And it's very hard with this age of social media, especially. I remember I was going to do my testimony. I used to, looking for a picture here. I used to never leave the house unless I was done up. I would not get on camera unless I was done up. I'm trying to find a picture that's not wonky. Hang on. That's not them. I hate to show you this. I'm going to explain this in a testimonial video. I hate this picture. This is me, not even 10 years ago when I was selling makeup on social media. The hair is extensions, most of it, but I hate it. But it's just an example. Like, this is where I came from. Like, I wouldn't even get on camera unless I had like everything done. And it doesn't come from vanity. It comes from this like really low place of self, right? And so sometimes these mystical experiences, when they happen to you, they change you so radically that the people around you, right, they don't know how to deal with it either. So he starts going through a lot of this. So he says he believes the plasmatic, and this is wild. He's so ahead of his time talking about plasma. Dick believes the plasmatic entity that visited him in March of 74 was the Logos, the Word, traveling back in time from the future. That seems to contradict the distinction he made between the Logos and the Holy Spirit earlier. But then he says, what difference does it make? It's only a semantic quarrel. He says these pages are dense and he doesn't know what he's gotten himself into with reading this. So we're going to go to the next day. Now, this is a letter he wrote to Peter Fitting, and you get to understand how his mind works. And he starts giving you these observations of reality. And again, some of them, the whole feeling that's underpinning this is like supernatural. Like you can feel it come through in the words. So in a 1974 letter to the literary critic Peter Fitting, now this is somebody who had done a review on one of his pieces, who a year later would publish the essay Ubik, the deconstruction of bourgeois SF. Dick talks about the tachyons, which he read about in an article by blah, blah, blah. Okay, we're going to keep going. Here it is. Now, in this letter to this critic, again, he's very open with everybody. He recounts how he read about vitamin megadosing to improve brain efficiency while doing research for his novel, A Scanner Darkly. If you've never seen A Scanner Darkly, the movie, I just recently saw it again, and it had been years. It is Keanu Reeves, Morton Downey Jr., and Winona Ryder when they're all younger, and they're all partly animated. It's like comic strip, but it is wild. It's very surveillance state type of movie, but it's very sci-fi. And again, this man was so far ahead of his time. Or again, are they just pulling things? Because we know that these beings, these archons, these fallen ones, whatever they are, okay, the pharaohs of old, they're not creative. They can't create the way that we do. They're not co-creators in the same way. When you give up pieces of your soul throughout your life, and then you do things you're not supposed to be doing, that leaves you. That's it's detrimental. Anyways, here I am talking about these entities, and people who are new here are probably like, "What are you talking about?" So he says he loaded up on water-soluble vitamins one night, and for 8 hours he hallucinated a series of colored graphics that resembled abstract art. He believed later this was due to the reduction of inhibitory neurotransmitter GABA in his brain. Following all this, he begins to receive, now this is wild, and this is where you get into like the number station area. Following all this, he begins to receive messages from the sky. So wait a second here. If your brain operates on frequency, what is he doing that is allowing for this to happen? Or is he just losing his mind? Let's see what happens. It says, at first he thinks he's picking up on some ESP experiment from the USSR, but then concludes these messages are not man-made, but rather a tachyon bombardment that lets him see the future. Hold. There are a lot of videos on the Akashic Records. I've mentioned them on here. I know I'm a Christian, but that doesn't mean I've not read about other things. There's this idea that these Akashic Records, okay, almost like a computer system. It's all the information, everything that's ever happened, past, present, future, everything that's ever going to happen is in it's held like DNA in the ether. And you can grab it, right? You can receive it because our brains are receivers. And that's our attribute, but it's also a downfall because we don't know. We've been mistaught, and most people don't know that the music you listen to, the things that you consume, all of this affects your natural state, right? And I think there's a reason for it. I think many of us have abilities that they haven't wanted us to utilize. And I think they are of God and they are from God. But you're going to have a lot of people, even people who call themselves Christians, a lot of people are going to be saying that it's of the devil because they don't have it. That's how it always goes down in history. It's like we haven't learned our lesson yet. Me, myself, I'm sick of reading about times like this and now going through it. You wonder, like, how long does it take a species to, like, spiritually evolve from being barbaric like that? So all of this is a sort of scientific explanation for what the Israelites, for instance, experienced when they imagined they were contacted by God. So he's saying it's all frequency. In a postscript, he decides these comic broadcasts weren't necessarily directed at him, but they may have influenced him to write Ubik. Before sending the letter, he returns to follow up on his theory that perhaps all of his books were written by him as a result of this tachyon bombardment. He could foresee the future, and that's why more and more people are telling him they feel they are living in a world that caught up to his stories. If you've ever seen The Mouth of Madness, or you watch Matt on Quantum of Conscience, he did a really good video on In the Mouth of Madness a few years ago. I'm not subbed to him I'm still subbed, but I don't watch people that I have so much in common with. I don't want their videos affecting like my brainwaves. That I don't want to unintentionally steal somebody's topic or have their perspective influence me. So if there's something I want to talk about, I'll make the video first and do my own research, and then I'll go watch somebody else's coverage on it to see what I missed or to look at it through their eyes, if that makes sense. And in our current reality, again, a lot of people, I hope, during lockdowns had the time to look around and say, wow, we've been really mistaught. Things are way different, than we were told they are. So he believes that he's getting these story concepts and ideas from the ether, basically. Okay. Now, this is a letter that he writes to somebody named Claudia Bush. If she related to the Bushes, I don't know. So they just do a quick little thing there. In a second letter to Claudia, Dick tells her about more dreams, in addition to the mysterious book he dreamt about, the Cumean Sibyl, and a Cyclops. A Sibyl, a Sibylline, is an oracle. This leads him to Virgil's Aeneid and an exploration of Greek and Roman myths. So now he's kind of like us, right? Like he's seeking, he's searching for knowledge. He wants to know what they knew, right? And this happens to so many of us with this conscious awareness that overcomes us, right? I feel like I was awake as a child, and then something happens, and I know I was fed medicine all the time, and I was given injectables all the time. I'm not a doctor. This is not advice, but it affects us in a bad way. And I think we need to be more careful what we put in here if we want like our minds and our hearts to be operating in the best capacity that it was created to, right? And that's also how we'll be the healthiest and the happiest. The Sibyl tells him in a dream that whoever broke into his home in 1971 and 72 was looking for papers related to his friend, Bishop Jim Pike. Now, again, had he started notes for this story? Because remember, this guy, he ends up using him as a character in one of his books, and then he ends up dying in a very mysterious way. So it gets weird. He writes a third letter to this person, Claudia, about Zoroastrianism, I cannot say that word, Zoroastrianism, and the battle between honesty and lies in that belief system. The Persians believed in the value and power of this life, as opposed to other religions like Christianity, which preach acceptance of this miserable world and hopes of a better future. Dick wants to bring back this affirmative view of life. I expect he's not done writing to her. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to the next page. Again, he starts making observations about reality that I think we can all learn from. Now, he writes another letter to this woman, Claudia Bush. He believes he is seeing beyond the lie. How many of us have talked about like the dark night of the soul, and you can tell that things are an illusion, right? And now it's more extreme than ever. Even our politicians and when we're given like briefings, they call people bad actors. Like, why are you calling them that? Are we in a movie? Why are they actors? Like, where did that word even come into play? And a lot of us have said since like either an NDE or some waking up, and a lot of people have said since 2017, 2018, people just seem to be declining. Not all of them, but some, right? So he believes he's seeing beyond the illusion that he covered in the last letter, and a compelling idea. He wonders if his writing, check this out. Oh my God, this is wild. We talk about this. He wonders if his writing alters reality. Do people expect the world to become more like his books after they read them? So what he's saying basically is like what they call a self-fulfilled prophecy. somebody believes in something so much that they encourage it to happen, that they manifest it. Again, manifest, I don't really like that word, but whatever. He returns to Ubik, which, when he's writing this letter, is he or everyone, this is wild, living in a pseudo environment like the one in that book? I'm gonna have to read that book now. And there's shows on Prime of his books made into movies and series. So I didn't know that right away. Is Jim Pike coming across to him from beyond death, like Runsitter did? Dick is changing and wonders if this is from the influence of Jim. He switched to drinking beer instead of wine, listens to rock music, which he never did before, and trimmed his beard. So in this era, July 8th, 1974, his pastor had passed already. Now, I'm going to do one more thing. I had some good material put up for this, and for some reason, it did not save. There we go. So since he mentioned Pike, I'm going to bring you guys back over here to how weird this is. Because again, I read you his bio in the beginning. So it says, and Jesus was led by the Spirit out into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Holy Land headlines, whatever happened to Bishop Pike? While heading towards Masada from Jerusalem, a certain question almost always comes up as American pilgrims are taking in the rugged landscape of the Judean mountains framed against the Dead Sea. Is this the area where Bishop Pike died? The first time I was asked, I simply answered in the affirmative. After the second time, I began to ask my more veteran colleagues for details. Their replies were vague and contradictory, even as to the year it happened. Little girl, stop it. The range was from the early 60s to the early 70s. Curiosity led me to the library to check the location of the wadi and to understand the circumstances in which he died. Most importantly, hey, I'm sorry. Oh, hold on one second. Girl. Hey guys, sorry about that. I did not want you to hear her barking. She does that when my son comes home. She don't like him. She only likes two people. So she's tough sometimes. Anyways, let's get back to the strange passing of Bishop Pike. Sit down, guys. Dean's leaving again. He's going to go. It says, so she's curious. She's newer here at this library, and she wants to know what happened to Bishop Pike. Or not library, she's new on the tour. So it says in late August 1969. So that's a couple of years before he started writing and having this spiritual awakening and deciding to write about it. It says, in 1971 was when they broke into his Philip K. Dick's home and allegedly did that because they wanted information or papers, documents about Bishop James Pike. So let's see. In late August 1969, Bishop James Pike, aged 56, and his third wife. I was wrong. It's his third wife, guys. Yeah, this is why, like, if you're in the church, man, that should be your life. In late August 1969, Bishop James Pike, age 56, that's not very old, and his third wife, Diane, 31. Immediately, I'm suspicious of her. I hate to say this, but when you're on, like, the second or third companion and there's that much of an age difference, Usually there's something going on there. It says they came to Israel for a month to gather material about the origins of Christianity for a book Pike was writing. And see, this makes me wonder. Okay, so at this same time, let me see if I can. I want to look at you guys while I'm talking to you. So at this same time, you have Philip K. Dick writing a story about the bishop, or not about him, but using him as a model for his character. Is that a conflict of interest there? Do you think Philip K. Dick was interested in what the bishop was writing? And they're both like dipping their fingers and toes into the occult. They're like eating from both tables. So that's a little, yeah, that's a little telling. All right, so let's get back to it. Whatever happened to Bishop Pike? So he was gathering information, material about the origins of Christianity for a book he was writing. On September 2nd, they set out from Bethlehem. Okay. Now, one day, not right now, but one day we're going to get a map out and we're going to look at stuff like this and see if it makes sense. Because again, I think this is giving us clues, guys. So it said on the 2nd, they set out for Bethlehem in a rented car, intending to reach the wilderness where Jesus was tempted by the devil. After passing Herodion, they turned off on an unpaved track, which they thought led toward the north to Jericho. They thought. They were, in fact, at the beginning of Wadi Mashash, leading east down towards the Dead Sea. I have so many questions immediately. Why do they not have a guide? See, the other story I could have sworn said like they had a guide, but they left him or they got separated from him, which is suspicious, automatically. Like, why are you leaving people who aren't accustomed to the land, marks here alone? And it's saying they're trying to get where they need to be. Well, did he have a compass? Did they take water with, like, what's going on? Anyway, they seem really ill prepared for people out in the desert and whatnot. And he thought he was going north, but he was heading east towards the Dead Sea. However, soon the unpaved road came to an abrupt end as it had been washed out by flash floods. The Pikes tried to turn around to go back to Bethlehem, but the rear wheels of the car dropped down into a deep rut. They couldn't free the car and didn't know how to use the jack. So why are you out there without anyone to assist you if you're that, like, not, I don't know what to say. I don't know, like you're that unskilled. The next day when, okay, so this is in parentheses. They're going to go back. The next day when Diane took the search party out to the car, the men pushed it free of the rut and the car ran perfectly. Interesting. Okay, so that photo right there looks south toward the Judean wilderness. And it was taken from the Mount of Olives. The flat-topped hill along the horizon is Herodion. Oh, wow. So they're like up here in BFE. Like they're way past everybody else. They're all alone. Why did they take nobody? The Pikes abandoned the car after trying unsuccessfully to get it out of the rut. They then walked for 2 hours. Now, mind you, this man's 56. I'm sure it's hot. Obviously, they're not prepared. If they don't know how to use a jack, chances are he's in like slacks or his like priestly garb or whatever, bishop garb. And she's 20 years younger. She's probably cute, right? Wearing something cute, maybe cool. I don't know. I don't like the setup for this. It sounds like a bad movie. It says the Pikes abandoned the car after trying unsuccessfully to get it out of the rut. They then walked for 2 hours until the Bishop Pike was too exhausted to go on. They found a relatively flat rock under a bit of an overhang that gave them some shade. Mrs. Pike later told the police she thought they would die together on that rock. Jeez, give me a break. Sorry. I'll try to be more pious. But then she thought that if she still had the strength, she should go get help. Before she set out, Pike told her that if he died there in the wilderness, he was at peace. Dude, that sounds so bad. Like, so bad. Is there life insurance? Again, the church probably considered him somewhat of a problem child, bad publicity, bad PR following him around. And churches can be vindictive. Like I said, the Catholic Church, like they didn't have no problem shutting people up, forcing them into vows of silence. They don't care. They're like, no. I think that's who, like, they chased allegedly, according to history, the popes have chased my family. So I don't, and we're Catholic. Like, how does that happen? How does that happen? I have no idea. So as the sun was setting, she left the map with her husband and continued walking. So who was reading the map this whole time? Like, you can't look at the sun and say, okay, well, I guess if you're not used to it, I don't know. Then, when she came to huge boulders and couldn't go any further, she climbed up on the walls of the wadi, continuing to head towards the Dead Sea. Finally, the canyon wall got so steep, she knew she had to climb out, even though that thought seemed impossible. Wow, this is like really flattering to her, isn't it? It sounds like romancing the stone or something. At the top of the canyon, 4 hours after leaving her husband, she eventually found a dirt track made by the Jordanians. Later, the road to Mitzbi Shalem. Okay, so it's an almost road. And followed it. The last kilometer had been unfinished by the Jordanians, and Diane Pike descended with only the moon to light her way. Oh my gosh, man. I'm sorry. Oh, I can't. The last kilometer had been unfinished by the Jordanians, and Diane Pike descended with only the moon to light her way. After some 10 hours, she stumbled the last few meters onto the road being built between Ein Gedi and Ein Basha. A security guard found her badly cut and bruised. Workmen brought her to Nahal Kalia, and she was taken to police authorities in Bethlehem. So she's got construction workers. She's got, man, whatever. Is this real? Are they serious? Okay, so that's the hill she came down by moonlight. I mean, it doesn't look easy. In an interview at the police station in Bethlehem, Mrs. Pike said, "We tried to follow Jesus' footsteps. We wanted to see the conditions Jesus knew. Jim had been here 6 times before. 6, there's that number. And I had been here once." I could just hear her. "It was our first time in the desert." "We didn't take a guide. We were very stupid about that." Yeah, I'd say. That's about as bad as no bulletproof shield on the Kennedy car. The story that Bishop Pike was reported missing in the Judean desert was immediately given front page coverage in the New York Times. Bishop Pike was a well-known, colorful figure in the Episcopal Church and had been embroiled in a number of controversies over the years. Pike, raised as Roman Catholic, became an agnostic while in college. Educated as a lawyer, he found himself drawn to the Episcopal Church during World War II. After the war, so did he go to the war? After the war, he studied at the Union Theological Seminary and began a clerical career that saw him rise to become Episcopal Bishop of the Diocese of California with a national reputation. I'm gonna have to look up his videos just to see like his manner. Because like how are you, no offense guys, but and I don't know how I basically do from watching. I could do it, I'm sure. Maybe not strength wise, but how do you not know how to change a tire? I don't understand that. Like or use a jack. Like, shouldn't you know those things if you're going to go out in the desert without a guide? This is a really weird story, guys. After the war, he studied at the Union Theological, blah, blah, blah. He was branded as a dangerous radical by conservative Episcopalians. It makes you really wonder, doesn't it? Like if she was like an Agent Smith sent to get close to him. Because we don't really know how he died. Now, I read, hold on a second. We're going to skip that part because we read some of that. Wait. Oh, no, we got to read that because it tells you how she came in the story. He was branded as dangerous. The concept of They were further incensed when he publicly began to criticize such basic Christian doctrines as the concept of the Trinity and the virgin birth. Oh my gosh. So he's like making an enemy of the Catholic Church, right? And back in the day, you don't do that. That's like making the mob daddy mad, like the dad of the family. Like you don't know. Like no matter what's going on, you just keep your mouth shut about that, right? There's a reason I don't name names. Like you just don't do certain things. So an example of his unorthodox approach was that as Bishop of Grace Cathedral in San Francisco, he ordered included among the stained glass windows panels honoring not only traditional saints, but also John Glenn the astronaut. This is what I'm talking about. When I get that feeling like stories are fake, like they're just being made to tell us some hidden truth, because that doesn't even make sense. In his cathedral, he ordered stained glass windows for the cathedral, right? To make it nicer, which is a nice gesture to do, if you're collecting money from people anyway, and they see you're putting effort and it's a beautiful place to honor and worship, blah, blah, blah. Not only traditional saints, but John Glenn, the astronaut. Does that not sound like some type of clue? Like, why are you putting an astronaut in a church, man? Especially if you read the Bible. You know that, like, that's not, no. In 1966, he resigned his see. Because of a dispute with the bishop who succeeded him, Dr. Pike was denied permission to marry Diane, who was the executive director of a foundation which conducted research into life after death. I'm telling you. Most people aren't going to understand what I'm about to say, but some of you might if you stayed this long. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I'll get to reading your comments if you left any. I hope you guys are getting to know each other so you could pray for each other, hang out, talk, whatever. Anyways, Neo, Agent Smith, they send him in to extract him. Not only that, but they don't want him and Trinity together, because together they're a dynamic force to be reckoned with. So they try to like reset them, rearrange them, keep them apart, all this stuff, right? We are told, if you're a Bible believer, right, and Pike or Philip K. Dick gets into the Acts thing, we're going to get there in the next video, a little deeper than we already have been. But it just makes you really think about these things. Like, it says your enemy will be those of your own household and your family, right? And it's almost like, even especially now, everyone says like the wheat and the tares are being separated and whatnot. There's literally maybe one believer for every, like, I don't know, but every house, like, or every 5 houses, or every house that's actually holding a family, right? Because we know there's a lot of empty houses, which it's a criminal act. It's like inhumane that we have so many homeless people and just all these empty houses. What's wrong with us? Why is that okay? Well, money. So what? You can't get a job without ID, and you can't get ID without a permanent address, and you can't work a job unless you're clean and rested. So you can't have all these things, you know what I mean? It's like a vicious circle. Once you lose like your documentation or something happens, you're screwed. Excuse me. But it's almost like they send people, like witches, like true occult people who participate in rituals, okay? It's like they actually send people to get rid of certain people in the church. Like holy assassins or something. Because imagine this, his son is deceased. He's prime. This guy's vulnerable because his son passed away and he desperately wants to talk to his son. His son ended himself, right? Self-deleted. So he's all tore up and he's questioning God now too. And he's talking to psychics and mediums. And now this woman that the church won't let him marry, she does scientific research into life after death, probably with like EEG monitors, all. And how do you do that? Do you purposely end yourself or get right to that point like that other movie? This is weird. This is so weird, guys. Sammy, quit kicking. Okay, so it says they wouldn't let him marry her. They had collaborated together on the book. Okay, so he helped her write a book, The Other Side, an account of my experience with psychic phenomena. The book recounted Bishop Pike's successful efforts to establish contact with the spirit of his son, who had ended himself in a New York hotel in 1966. What a year. Same as 1888, right? Bishop Pike married Diane anyway, without the approval of the Episcopal diocesan, and was consequently barred from preaching in Episcopal churches in California. See, so he's probably like midlife crisis. His son is gone. He's been really close to this woman. I want to like see what she looks like now. He wrote, "The poor may inherit the earth, but it would appear that the rich, or at least the rigid, respectable, and safe, will inherit the church." He's not wrong about that. Coming to Jerusalem. So from Bethlehem, a search party was immediately established to rescue Bishop Pike. Hundreds of off-duty soldiers, volunteers, policemen, and border police were involved, as well as planes and helicopters. The abandoned car was found, but not Bishop Pike. The only clue was the discovery of the map, but there were no indications as to which direction the missing bishop had set out. Why would you leave the map? After 3 days of temperatures rising above 100 degrees, the official hunt was called off and the search was continued by 36 former Army scouts and local Bedouin. Oh, how sweet. Chances for the survival of Bishop Pike were considered to be slim. In the midst of a news conference at her hotel, Mrs. Pike was contacted by her family in the States, who said the same seer who had put her husband in contact with the spirit of his son had had a vision of him alive. What a bunch of crockabully. The seer, who was recuperating from a heart attack, said Bishop Pike was alive in a cave not far from where she had left him, but he was sick. As a result of the publicity on Bishop Pike's past involvement with the seer, Mrs. Pike was contacted by many self-proclaimed mediums. You see? So they're all saying this, that, and the other. The same Tel Avivian medium that got another message, this time through automatic writing. Why are they telling us all this? That's wild. The same Tel Avivian medium got another message, this time through automatic writing. That is, the medium held a pen in her hand, and a spirit claimed it was the most noted American medium who had ever lived, Edgar Casey, himself dead since 1948. Moved the pen. The message was that Bishop Pike was in a cave, unconscious and near death. The cave was said to be on a narrow ridge with shrubs covering the mouth of the cave. Volunteers and police officials and members of the Society for the Protection of Nature searched the area again, looking for a cave. He was not to be found. Wow, look at that, guys. Like, where would you even... You could have some shade, but... The date orchard by the Dead Sea was planted after 1969 when Diane Pike came by seeking help to rescue her husband. Mrs. Pike, visibly bruised after her own 10-hour hike through the same rocky terrain, joined the search party. Good for her husband almost every day. She was admired by... Who was writing this? Did she write it herself about herself? This is really weird. Is it just me? Is it just me? This is strange to me. Okay, nobody's commenting. I don't know. It's weird to me. All right, let's go. She was admired by all for her stamina and composure under the most difficult of circumstances. The police found themselves torn between their skepticism of the new information being produced by seers and mediums and their desire to help Mrs. Pike. Wow, this is really, it's like a tribute to her. I don't understand that. On September 7th, 5 days after the Pikes had left Bethlehem to follow the footsteps of Jesus, the body of Bishop Pike was found. He had apparently continued in the footsteps of his wife, believing that she was in trouble. He had found a pool of water, but went on probably looking for his wife. He had left a series of clues: a map, undershorts, glasses, and a contact case to indicate the path he had taken. Why would you leave your eyes, though? Like, you have... I don't get it. Unless they're reading glasses. Bishop Pike was climbing a steep ascent in Wadi Mashal, either to extricate himself from a box canyon or to get a better view, when he fatally slipped and fell. The following day, he was buried. Hold up. I gotta ask. I know I'm not trying to be doom and gloom all the time, but this is wild. And it's just the two of them. And it's just her word against his. How do we know, like, that they weren't together there and she left that stuff? Is it, like, I don't know, man. That's kind of suspicious. Was he active? Would you do that? Would you try to... Yeah, that's gross. There's his grave, I guess. When the body was found, Mrs. Pike eulogized her husband. There could have been no more appropriate place for Jim to pass, if he had to pass. He passed in the country he loved as though it were his own, in the wilderness where Jesus, according to the Gospels, went to pray and meditate. Dude, that's really suspicious. Are they sure, like, nobody pushed him off there? I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, but this guy is controversial. Like, he would have enemies. Oh, Diane Pike wrote her after the article. Diane's brother, Scott Kennedy, wrote me that he had visited the Wadi Mashash with his daughter and a friend during a visit to Israel. We spent several hours there hiking into the Wadi to the spot where Jim Pike died. It has changed some since that time, but I hadn't been into the Wadi for more than 20 years. I find it strangely beautiful, despite the association with his death. These people are strange. I'm sorry, but that's not how you react when someone you love is like, has died in that way. Now, are there any clues in there? I don't know, but the fact that Philip K. Dick's filing cabinet was broken into, and the only thing they seemed to take or were interested in were documents, things that he had wrote, like notes about him, I guess, or letters to him maybe that he had kept, just like he kept all of these. So that's wild. Okay, now we're back to Philip K. Dick because we wanted to find out like who this guy was that he, confessed to, like his confessor, right? So he says, he's talking about his books. We're going to have to read this book. Is he or everyone living in a pseudo environment like the one in that book? Is Jim Pike coming across to him from beyond death like Runsitter did? Dick is changing and wonders if this is from the influence of Jim. He switched to drinking beer instead of wine, listens to rock music, which he never did before, and trims his beard. He says with his regimen of massive doses of water-soluble vitamins, he thinks he may have improved communication between the two hemispheres of his brain, which are now working together for the first time in his life. That's what they say the goal is with those binaural beats and with the Gateway Project. But I think you have to approach these things with caution, especially when you're asked to like listen to a series of tapes or sounds. These people are experts at that. We aren't, or I'm not an expert at that, at frequency. I don't think I want just anybody intentionally like zapping things out. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the binaural beats because they're associated with like hypnotism and mesmerism, and so I'm not sure how I feel about that. But again, this is the early 70s, and even the older people were like experimenting with things, and I guess it was a wild time. So with we got that. He dreams mostly of the Hellenistic period. He decides whatever is contacting him is non-Christian or pre-Christian. It pulled him back to 100 AD, just before the start of Christianity. Maybe Vallis decided Christianity was a wrong turn, and Dick is supposed to get it right this time around. Finally, he concludes he is being contacted by Asclepius, Greek son of Apollo. In a footnote, the editors remind us these personality changes could be a result of temporary strokes due to Dick's high blood pressure. Now, again, I find it interesting that they mention that there because these people all die under mysterious circumstances. That's what I said. Like mystics, people who are prophetic, if they come out and say things straight away, their time here will be ended, right? Jesus started saying certain things that were radical to everybody else, and it made them want to kill him. So imagine like a prophet, right? Like that's why Jonah didn't want to be a prophet. He's like, I don't want to go tell these people. They're horrible. They're not going to listen to me. Like he's already assuming he knows, right? He's like, I don't want to go do this because they're terrible to prophets, right? They try to kill them. Look what Jezebel did to the prophets. Like it's just bad. So some of them, it's possible, try to sneak out truth in their writings, in their media, in their art. So we have to understand just as much as like the bad side or the dark side uses like media to communicate with each other, so do the good guys. And a lot of times too, they're sending us subliminals that we don't even know about. Because I know that something happened to me, and I know that people don't believe me, and that's okay. Like obviously I'm not doing this for popularity or any type of attention, and I rarely show my face these days, but it's nice to have a human touch. We're getting to a point where I don't know if I'm going to use any devices for much longer other than a Walkman, because it's just enough is enough. It's just too much, and nobody asked us if we wanted all of this fake art and And have you seen like some of these AI videos they make of people? Like their perception of us, right? The mockery, but it made me feel really bad. I was like, wow, that's how we can be seen. You know what I mean? Like I just made me feel bad. Okay, so I'll read one more letter and then I'm going to end this video because I want everybody to like associate that pastor with him because we get into more things about how he traveled there and what happened. And when Dick's filing cabinet is broken into, when his house is broken into and those documents are taken, he starts having like more visions. It's very strange. So it says, this is another letter to that lady Claudia Bush, July 22nd. Dick solves the puzzle. He's been dreaming about the Dead Sea Scrolls. These scrolls from the Qumran Essene community were found in 1946 in the Judean desert. Guys, that's a weird year, okay? Because we've got World War II happening. We've got all these books being found, the Nag Hammadi and the Dead Sea Scrolls. But I also read that that's when the Vegan Society was found because they were rationing meat. And there were people who felt better and healthier and realized, what it does is it opens up your conscience, like your Jiminy Cricket. A lot of people, especially in our modern society, they're never quiet with themselves. And if they are, they don't listen to their conscience. And when you clean yourself out of certain things, especially today with all the antibiotics they put in everything, but just the fact that you're consuming death. Anyway, they enjoyed it and they founded the Vegan Society at this same time. So let's throw something else in there because Philip K. Dick thinks we're all still in 50 AD and we're just like inside Jerusalem, inside the walls. So we aren't seeing things as they really are, right? If other people are correct and this is the short season of Satan, that would almost mean that like when people got the tattoos and whatnot and the camps at Auschwitz, but a lot of them pictures look kind of fake nowadays when you start asking questions. I think we learned something. I think we get to a point where we start spiritually evolving and whatever's thinks it's running the show, tries to shut that down in us, whether it's through the food, the air, all that stuff. This is why you should grow your own if you can. And so he says they weren't exactly a brand new discovery. Nonetheless, he's convinced that what is tapping into at night. Jim Pike studied the scrolls, so perhaps this is because of his influence. I'm not sure how serious he is. So this is the guy making notes, right, for us, because again, the Exegesis is very big. And this is from folder 4 with another note to Claudia, but he says, be careful who you tell about all this. A dream that he has about the Dead Sea Scrolls? Why would that be? And I'm really curious where they were in relation to all of these like caves and stuff when Pike died. That'd be interesting. Here's another letter to her. He complains about how he was portrayed in an interview, blah, blah, blah. And in the next letter, he tells her about a dream involving an elevator, a policeman, and a pile of spaghetti. He decides the cop represents the guide who leads souls across to the other side. In another dream, he sees some men with egg-shaped heads who he's convinced are the superior race of immortals. Egg-shaped heads. I did a video probably like towards the beginning of this channel when I migrated over here and started doing things on here. And we talked about dream sorcerers. And the cover of the book we were like taking notes from was an Amazon Kindle book, but the dream sorcerers had like these big and that's what I call them, like bubble heads, and they got the big noses, and they look like an exaggerated version of what all the Freemasons look like once they get older, like Anton LaVey, bald head, they just like get creepy looking, but that's what they look like. But like I call them bobbleheads, right? That's wild to me. And it's just like DMT. You have people having the same experiences saying, I see this. Now, Granted, a lot of those people might have been influenced from hearing other people's stories, but some of them probably didn't even know and had never heard about that, right? So at some point, it was organic, it was a genuine shared experience, even though you're not together. You see what I'm saying? Like, even now in 3D, we can look at the same thing happening, and both of us are going to have a different story from from our perspective. This guy is so beyond. He's like so far ahead of his time. Okay, so this is a letter he wrote to Ursula Le Guin in September. It says they both went to high school together. They didn't know each other at that time, but they corresponded in the 70s. No one knows why. Dick tells Le Guin that when he explained everything that has been happening to him, his fellow sci-fi author friend Thomas Disch said Dick might have been possessed by Elijah. Dick is excited at that idea. It might very well have been the same spirit that filled Elisha, and reappeared as John the Baptist. And that spirit is here today of Elijah, because it's over a lot of us. All right, this is the last one on page 2, and then we'll end this video. So he writes Claudia again, and he tells her about a hypnagogic vision he had of a godlike figure, while at the same time a Greek phrase entered his head. His wife helps him determine the Greek was from Hebrews 7:26 in the King James translation. For such a high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made higher than the heavens. Whatever is visiting him has gone by many names in the past: Apollo, the Holy Spirit, Elijah, and what Virgil called the immanent mind in the Aeneid. Dick is convinced the immortals made a promise to return thousands of years ago, and they are finally keeping that promise. How many people have the awakening and they're like, wow, we're not alone here, right? It's not quite aliens, but it's not human, right? And some people have an NDE. Some people have like a rapturous experience that's mystical. Some people, it's instigated through substances. But some people have the same stories, see the same visions, see the same beings. Interesting. Very interesting. You guys share what you think. I think that story is strange. Philip K. Dick has a lot of things happening around him. Do you think he could be a prophet? I kind of do, or is it self-fulfilling prophecies? Or again, was this tech always here and our generation just was not told? Or at least I know I wasn't, but I remember certain devices now from being a child. But again, I've had to clean up my body and detox and do all these things. Thank you guys so much for being here and hanging out with me. But as always, chat in the comments, get to know each other. That's kind of why I do things the way I do them, is so that we can build a fellowship and get to know each other. Unless I am stuck on a dead internet, and then it doesn't even matter. You guys have a blessed night, and we will talk soon. I'm sure I'll have a current event video coming. I mentioned a few things going on. It's stressful, right? So I hope people can come here and at least try to like kind of escape a little bit and just get into touch with their spirit. And then when we're done, maybe you'll go pray, maybe you'll go for a walk, maybe you'll enjoy the night air. But either way, you got away from the muck and yuck for a little bit. You guys have a blessed night. We'll talk soon. Bye.